Welcome to the Backup Podcast, a show on how technology is changing the way we live and do business. I'm your host, Ioannis Bakagiannis. Backup is ready to start. Hello. This is episode 11 of the Backup Podcast. In this episode, I have the opportunity to host the youngest podcast participant ever. But what he lacks in years, he compensated with skill. He is a crypto analyst for the up-and-coming players in the space, Conflux. He is Sami Tannir. Sami, welcome to the show.
Hey, Giannis, thanks for having me.
This is not a joke. You're really young. Like, how old? Even if you don't look like it, how old are you?
I just turned 21.
Wow.
Not.
And yeah,
It's old for the crypto. It's old for the crypto space.
I definitely don't think so. And how did you end up in that space in the blockchain and crypto space? Because that space, even it is kind of new. And how, like, you heard about it, how you were interested in it?
So I guess I was like most people when the 2017 the first bull run for Bitcoin happened. I was one of those people who was just following it lightly. I set up like an account on an exchange, and I was just playing around with Bitcoin, some of the other ICOs that were coming out.
Wait a minute. It's not easy to set up an account and play with it. Like how
It is.
No, it's not. Like it's not even. They didn't have the funds. Like you had to get like a credit card and then put some funds in there. It wasn't that easy to set up an account back then. Like who introduced you to that?
Well, actually, for me, it was a really simple process where I was still in high school at the time. So a friend gave me his referral code for Binance, and which is one of the biggest crypto exchanges. And what happened was that they gave me the referral code, and they said, all you have to do is just use a prepaid Visa card, and that way it won't get blocked. So the way I had to get my funds onto the exchange was to have to go to Shoppers and get a prepaid Visa card with like $250 on it. And that's all I had, because I wasn't going back to Shoppers and getting another prepaid card. So
interesting. And you were like, okay, let's do it. It's all my funds, but just to play with it. Like I'm wondering, like, because most let's say 17-year-olds would spend that money on alcohol.
Yeah.
or something. Let's say a Juul or whatever these kids are on about. But you said, okay, I'm gonna explore that space of crypto, and you went.
Well, for me, actually, I always really enjoyed it, because when I was in high school, I knew sort of what I wanted to do after school was to get into economics, and sort of economics, but I always had an interest in like IT and computer science and that sort of stuff. So what actually happened was, after high school ended, I went to York University here in Toronto for economics, and I was in like my first year, second year, and it was just like so boring. So what happened was I was just exploring other options if I was to pivot into sort of like IT or computer science. Keep in mind at this stage, I'm still really into cryptocurrency more than I was before. And what happened was I stumbled across this program. It was the only program in Canada which would give you a certification for blockchain development, which was here in Toronto at George Brown. So what I did was I dropped out of York, and I took this 1-year program. I just signed up for it, which gave me a certification in blockchain development. So I learned the ins and outs of basically the whole cryptocurrency and blockchain space, how to create applications on it, how mining works, how economics behind these tokens works. And that obviously I've always been interested in, and now it sort of gave me that opportunity to make it my career, right? So as soon as that program ended, obviously the crypto space is very undermanned. There's not enough people working in it at all. So I was lucky enough to get my first job here at Conflux Network, which is a new layer 1 similar to Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these other chains. And what I do there is basically
before we go there, I don't want to catch you, but it is so interesting that you dropped out of like a high profile school and they said, okay, I'm gonna go into this space that nobody knows about it at that point, right? It's not very known. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna go and join JP Morgan. I'm gonna go and join this school for this who knows what technology. So what was the motivation behind that?
The motivation was that I never wanted to work at one of these big companies. Like when you dive deep into Bitcoin, the whole purpose of Bitcoin is like no corporations, no employees, no foundations, none of this sort of stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if all I'm doing on the side outside of school is this cryptocurrency, which at that time was very focused on not having like big corporations and governments and all that sort of stuff controlling your money, right? It's like, what am I going to do when I finish York here? I'm going to go work at one of these banks, which I don't like already. Like the Bitcoin community has forced me to hate these places, and now I have to go work for them, right? So uh, I didn't like it. And I sort of went with that sort of standpoint, like going into this program, like obviously it was a very unknown space. Like not a lot of people knew about it. But for me, it was like, maybe I can go into it and I can start my own thing. Or I know there's a lot of people hiring in it. Like people are exploring different things. And yeah, like that was really the reason I went for it. And the nice thing was that I could just go back to York if it didn't work out. But for anyone who's looking to get into the space, like it will definitely work out. Like the space is very undermanned and there's lots of jobs out there.
Yeah, but what's out? I'm working for one of those Fortune 500 companies. Just joking, just joking. But the thing is that many people think that Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto, whatever, they're just buzzwords. But definitely, I believe there is something more. Uh, I've heard from people within the space that right now we're trying to get into the Internet of Things, but there exists an Internet of Value that many crypto companies are trying to bring into the forefront. What are these people trying to say? What is the next step for this connectivity of people?
So uh, the term is DeFi across the whole space. They call it DeFi, which stands for decentralized finance, right? When Bitcoin and Ethereum first came out, there really wasn't much to it other than like a speculative asset, right? So people would just buy it and hope that it goes up, and there was really never any protocol behind it or any sort of real business behind it. So what happened was with Ethereum, it kind of built on top of the idea of Bitcoin, where now on that blockchain you can create your own applications which run on the Ethereum mainnet, right? So I can go on Ethereum and I can code like my own application, my own bank, whatever it is, and I can deploy it on Ethereum, and then people who have Ethereum wallets can go and use that, and I can create new tokens and I can create new assets on that chain, and yeah, that's really it, right? So that was played around with for a bit. People started playing around with the Ethereum chain. And then really last year, what happened was two projects came out, which really sort of shaped up the whole space and brought it to where it is today, where there's over $40 billion locked inside this concept of DeFi, right? Um, I'll explain those two first, and then we can really dive into what it's exploded into, like what it's become. So it was really this company called Compound and Uniswap, right? And what Uniswap was is an exchange similar to Binance or Coinbase, or
Mm-hmm.
you guys maybe what's popular here. Like I don't even use these exchanges anymore because I
Well,
only
Coinbase is gonna go public in a month or so,
yeah.
so we're gonna see about that.
So the thing with Coinbase is that you have to make an account and you have to give them your name and your ID and all these sort of things. And then
And
if
your
you think about it,
passport and your
passport,
photo, yeah,
and you have to take a photo like holding up a piece of paper saying like the date or something, right?
yeah.
So um, if you think about the idea of cryptocurrency, which is there's no central authority, no one is holding, like you own your own money. Um, these exchanges that's not what they're doing, right? Like these exchanges are the complete opposite of that, where they're basically saying like you can buy the cryptocurrencies, but we're still going to hold them for you, similar to how
Mm-hmm.
a bank would work, right? And that's just not what crypto is, right? So what Uniswap proposed was an exchange where you don't actually have to register, you don't actually have to do the KYC process, and anyone can list a token, and even you or I could sort of use our Ethereum address directly, go to Uniswap, and we can trade tokens between each other, right? So to get a bit into like the financials of it, um, it's not like a typical order book exchange where someone puts up a bid and then someone puts up like an ask. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what it is, it's this concept of an automated money market. So basically, I can also be the liquidity provider for Uniswap itself. All the liquidity sourced for Uniswap is coming from other users, people who have tokens in their wallet. So if I create a new token, I can go on Uniswap and I can put $10,000 worth of that token into Uniswap, and then people can play around with it, trade it with any other token.
Yeah, but how do you determine the price? Because right now what you describe is like you break down the supply and demand rule of
Yeah.
the market. Like, how do you define the price then?
So it's this idea of like a constant sum. So what they do is they divide. Oh, I'm probably gonna get this wrong. My math is so off, but you basically divide the token by how much liquidity is provided in Uniswap, and then you match that with the other pair it's paired with, and you divide that by how much liquidity is in the pair, and it comes up with the same price that would be traded on any of the other exchanges.
What other than the crypto space, like other than trading and sending money from one party to the other, right? I'm saying what it doesn't matter. Is it Bitcoin? Is it Ethereum? Is it whatever? Dogecoin? I don't care. It's like, is it the only reason that we're using crypto for sending assets from one party to the other? What are the other things that exist there? Because right, that is it's no different than a certain bank or like a stock market. Even if you have assets that go up and down in value or whatnot, but what is different with crypto and why we should pay attention to that?
Yeah, for sure. So when Uniswap first came out with this idea of making an exchange that lives on the blockchain natively, and there's only 7 people working there, and there's billions of dollars locked in it, right? Like the community really decides how that protocol works. People sort of looked at that and said, hey, like if they can do this, like we can do anything we want on the Ethereum blockchain, right? And what happened next was there's like lending and borrowing platforms. So anyone could provide liquidity and be a lender, and they would basically stake those tokens, and then people could go and borrow money without providing their identity or their credit score by basically, well, right now it's not fully optimized, but what would happen is you'd put up 150% collateral, and then you can take a loan out. So people can actually take loans out in regions where really there's no banking infrastructure. As you know, like almost majority of the world does not have a bank, right? So that's the idea with enabling some of these applications, is that, okay, now what I can do is I can actually use applications on the blockchain, and I can take loans out without having to go through the traditional banking infrastructure, right? So, and on top of that, I can make money on the money I have, where typically if you were to lock up your money in a interest-bearing savings account, like in Canada, it really ranges from like 0.1% to like 2%, I'd say, right? Like the average savings account. After the fees and everything, that's what you get to. With applications like Compound and Maker and Aave, these are all other applications that live on the Ethereum chain. What it sort of enables is there's no middleman, right? So you can lend your assets directly to the person who's paying maybe 7% rate on their borrowing, and you get that 7% right back to you. So when you start lending out your tokens on Ethereum, you can find interest rates of upwards of 10% to like 20%. And obviously at this point now, people are sort of found loopholes around it, and you can actually earn ridiculous yields like 1,000% a year, 1,000% APY on your deposits. But that's really what it's become, is that there's applications for lending, there's applications for borrowing, applications for trading. There's even this idea I was just telling my friend about, like Pool Together, which is like a no-loss lottery. So what it is basically is everyone pools their tokens together, like you buy a lottery ticket, and while that lottery ticket is waiting, it's accruing interest by depositing it on places like Compound or Maker, and it's accruing interest. And at the end, someone wins all of that interest, and your initial deposit you get back. So it's like a no-loss lottery. So people are experimenting with all kinds of things, even outside of the financial interest ecosystem. But I would say at this point, it's reached the stage where anything you can do anything you can do with a bank, you can do on a blockchain more efficiently and without having to trust a third party for it, really.
Okay, I get the not trusting third party, but many people do trust a third party, like for example a bank or whatnot. And I've never heard of a person that, oh, I forgot my password, I lost my 10 million. for a bank, which has happened. Like at least in Canada, there was one famous example that a person died that had all the keys for exchange, and they lost I don't know how much money because they couldn't retrieve the passwords. In a in a centralized bank, they have these how do you call it, like second level safety uh, based on the legitimacy that a government gives you. That's the only thing. It's not that the party like a bank gives you that
Yeah, yeah,
legitimacy. A government gives you like this wiggle room that you can play around. Plus, you have the capital to do so.
yeah.
Uh, but that's the thing. Like, why should people care about crypto? Is it a fancy thing that at some point, like, banks will adopt and they're gonna consume the space? Like, is it another, like, for example, Visa that we're not gonna pay that much to the intermediaries? And I can tell you right now because I tried the past couple of weeks to do some DeFi transactions. The fees are not that low.
So yeah, the blockchain is completely congested right now. No one can use it. I'll definitely tap into that later. But just to answer your first question about why would someone use it,
Yeah.
right? Let me give you a prime example. There was a very good case study that was put out by MakerDAO, which is a company that provides stablecoins on the blockchain. Stablecoins are
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies that
Explain.
are
Yeah.
always pegged to $1. Argentina is in a financial crisis.
How that works though, like because I don't think people are gonna decide peg to $1. Like, how does thing go? Is that magic?
So, okay, Maker is a very complicated. The way Maker does it is very complicated. So I'll give you a better example of a stablecoin, which would
Yeah.
be USDT or Tether. That's a very popular one. So what that basically does is it has a central bank account, and people deposit US dollars into this bank account. And once the bank account has that certain collateral, it will mint that exact amount onto the blockchain. So
Okay.
the token is backed by the collateral that's in the bank account.
Great.
Obviously, like I was saying, everyone cares about decentralization. So Maker came out and said instead of backing it with US dollars in a bank account, we'll back it by cryptocurrencies. But that would take me an hour to explain. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, so Maker introduced this
Maybe
concept.
some computing power at the end of it also, but
Yeah.
yeah. Continue.
So Maker introduced this, like Maker did a case study of, they looked at the different regions that were using DAI, which is their stablecoin, like USDT I just mentioned, and they were kind of exploring, like, who is really using this sort of stuff, like outside of just trading and arbitrage and using it as leverage and that sort of stuff, right? And they found that Argentina is really one of the biggest use cases for it, where Argentina, everyone knows, is in the huge financial crisis, right? And there's a US dollar shortage there. So there's actually not enough US dollars there for it to support the economy. So they found that people have been using DAI like an insane amount um, in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. There's actually been, like, I think it was a 550% increase of use of stable coins in that region. And with everyone having smartphones there, but not necessarily a bank, now what it enables is that people can use DAI and transact with vendors and transact with people on the street, really, and just use these stable coins instead, right? So I don't think it's ever going to reach a stage where it's like, oh, PayPal is shutting down, Bitcoin shut down PayPal. I think what it really will enable is giving people access to financial systems in regions where they're either facing economic crises or they just don't have the infrastructure to set something up like that, right? If you look at the people who are using cryptocurrency a lot, obviously in the American market, it's people just buying it and using Bitcoin as like a store of value,
Yeah.
an alternative to gold. But when you start looking at other regions like Africa or South America, Asia specifically, the use cases of it being as like payments are growing like exponentially. And like, no, everyone's like, oh, but Bitcoin, you can never use Bitcoin because it can shoot up or down like $4,000 in one candle. And people say, hey, like there's other alternatives to Bitcoin. Like the blockchain itself, DeFi itself has introduced new types of assets where you don't have to use just Bitcoin. There's thousands of tokens. And even just beyond that, like with DeFi, there's actually stocks are now wrapped onto it the same way a stablecoin would come on. So people can go onto DeFi and buy stocks. You can buy Tesla, you can buy Amazon, you can buy Apple, and it's backed by the actual stock as collateral too, right? So there's a whole new financial ecosystem infrastructure growing that is apart from like these traditional stock exchanges or banks, which other regions are
I
using.
really want to go there in a bit, but to enhance your point, I have two things that really stuck with me when we're talking about decentralized finance. As you said, Argentina. In 2017, it was Venezuela. When you were like, their coin was going to the gutters, and they were experiencing inflation out of this world. And some smart Venezuelans that were mining Bitcoin or any other coin with their GTX 1080 Ti's at that time. So it was very apparent that they survived through that thing with their crypto money that they were making with GPU mining, which was insane. And right now, during the pandemic, there are many people that I've met. I have no idea that that was possible. That they sold their artwork through NFTs. That it was empowered through blockchain, and that was like a wow moment for me. Like an artist could benefit from a technology like that.
They
It
are
was
benefiting like crazy right now.
yeah, it was kind of awesome to think about it, right? And I don't
So
know.
let me explain that concept of an
Yes.
NFT
Hmm.
for people who don't understand what an NFT is. So for Bitcoin, you all must have seen by now that there's 21 million Bitcoins out there circulating in the world. Um, what NFTs do is kind of like a unique take on other cryptocurrencies where there's only ever one. There'll only ever be one of these tokens. Obviously, it's a bit more technical than that, but what people do is they'll create digital artwork, like even GIFs or videos at this point, music, could be anything. And what they do is they'll tie that specific copyright,
Cameos, like
cameos.
Mark Cuban. I don't know if you saw that
I
tweet
just
right
bought a
here.
Mark Cuban. I bought a Mark Cuban NFT
Really?
today, and it's him talking about NFTs like a poem he said about how much he
Oh,
loves
that's
NFTs,
funny.
and then someone put like a techno beat behind it or something, and then they turned it into an NFT, and I bought it because I thought it was cool. Um, so anyways, yeah, so like what NFTs really enable is like now that uh, you can tie your IP of like a specific asset to this token, which you just created out of thin air, and you can directly list it onto a marketplace, and you can get all your money for it, like through Ethereum, through other blockchains. Like that's been one of the fastest growing markets in crypto as well. Like um, there's these apps called Rarible and OpenSea for people who want to check it out. That those are like the main marketplaces and hubs where people can buy and sell artwork, or even now there's so many different things you can buy and sell, like cards. People like love trading cards, obviously, right? So people are turning trading cards into NFTs.
Tell that to my
And
Pokemon addiction.
yeah, Pokemon, soccer cards have been the one really that, obviously, because like I was saying, crypto is huge in Latin America. The soccer cards have blown up like crazy, and it's an investment. Like if you can figure it out, I don't know if you follow soccer, but if you were to buy like a young soccer player who's up and coming, you know what you're doing. You buy him now, buy him early. Like a couple years later, you had that card. You're the only one who has that card, right? It's not like other. It's not like traditionally. It's like, oh, I have this fake card. Like,
Yeah.
there's no fakes. You can verify it on the blockchain. Um, NBA has recently given out their copyrights to another partner called Top Shot. That's the coolest app probably
Yeah.
out there right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Top Shot is basically a digital. It's a card, um, like a regular trading card, and on the back is a highlight of what that player did that game, right? So it's like Giannis dunking, or here Giannis,
Yeah,
Giannis
it
dunk.
is insane right now. Yeah.
That is like the coolest thing to me, and it's like like that's what really like blockchain and DeFi is all about. It's just experimenting and just seeing what works, right? that's what this word Internet of Value is, right? Like people are just sort of creating value not out of thin air anymore, which used to be the case in 2017, which caused that big crash. Like people are really creating new tokens and new primitives for tokens that have this new sort of collateral and new sort of value flow that is no you can't compare it to anything else in the world really, and that's why I love the DeFi space so much.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining for sure. But right now you're at Conflux, and I wanted to talk about a bit about that and what do you do and what does Conflux do? How it fits in the crypto space?
So, my role there is as I'm a DeFi research analyst. Um, you might say like, why do you need someone just for DeFi? And I'll tell you because every week there's some. If you turn off your computer for a week and you come back to DeFi, you're like a nobody. You have no idea what you're talking about anymore, right? So that's what I do. I basically keep the team up to date, and obviously I do like research with other people, um, just helping develop the space and stuff, right? For Conflux. So what Conflux is it's basically a new layer one. It's a new blockchain similar to Ethereum. Ethereum is obviously the most popular right now, but as you saw, Ethereum is outdated. You could say the tech can't handle the demand at all. And like you were saying, you have to pay $100 for a fee now, $100 for a transaction. What Conflux does is it's created a new sort of consensus mechanism for the blockchain where your transactions are approved instantly. You don't have to wait 30 minutes, 40 minutes for your transaction to get approved. And there's also close to zero transaction fees. So zero gas you're paying on all the transactions, right? Um, and we think that's really important for, like we were saying, like these new markets that are really adopting cryptocurrency, like Asia, like South America. They don't have the capital to sort of waste on, like the average person, even people here, like people don't have the capital to waste $100 on something they just want to experiment with, right? So we think that it's important that we introduce like a new sort of blockchain where people can do the same experimenting. They can try whatever they want out. They can build new things, make it easy for developers, but at the same time, like make sure that transactions are approved instantly and the transaction fees are close to zero. Because if we can't even get that right, then um, how are we gonna ever progress in the space, right? Like people think of blockchain and they think of this new next generation technology that's coming for their jobs or whatever. But when you go and you test it out, like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, like it can't even process a fraction of what these.
Yes, they feel old actually. So how we can make crypto mainstream and people trust it at the same time?
So yeah. So the problem with crypto, and it will be a problem for many, many years, is that it's very illiquid. No matter which way you look at it, it's
Yeah.
very illiquid market, and that's really what causes these pumps and dumps, right? Like because it is such an illiquid market, and because there's not enough tokens circulating, the market cap of all these tokens is way too low for it to ever be a real option to invest in, right? At the moment. Um, that's really what causes these pumps and dumps and makes it such a trouble for people to look at is why would anyone ever invest in this, right? And the fact of the matter is, it's like, why would you buy Tesla when they're they were in the red for so many years, right? You're betting on the future, and you're betting on the fact that Bitcoin, as they issue more tokens, as the price rises and the market cap rises, that it's not this a liquid token that anyone can sort of just buy do a huge dump and the whole token crashes, right?
Yeah.
The whole point of it is sort of that you're parking your money here, and that over time the network is going to grow. There's going to be more users, more traders, so that not one person can decide the whole network, not one person can influence the whole market, right? And I think that's definitely the only really way, like the only way to really put it. And also, you look at other tokens now that are coming out into the space. Like I said, stablecoins. There's ETFs, the very popular ETFs coming out now, which are backed by other tokens. There's tokens that are managed by traders in the real world. It's called token sets. I encourage you to check it out, where you can sort of invest in someone and they sort of trade the token for you. So people are trying to work around it by saying, you know what, instead of depending on this token's market cap to be the holy thing that everyone looks at for why we should invest in it, we're going to look at new forms of collateral that will back this token. And That could be gold. That could be real estate. People are really doing these things like turning their houses into tokens.
I've talked with a person that was a high exec at some point, and he was arguing that every new technology that is gonna be a breakthrough at some point, it has its killer app within a couple of years of existence. Like he was arguing that the internet has email, AI has a lot of things going on for itself. Like what would be crypto's killer app? Many many
Cryptocurrency has DeFi.
many think that it's Bitcoin, but I don't think that is true because
Are you talking about blockchain technology or just like
well, I'm talking about blockchain technology. Let's go about blockchain technology.
blockchain technology? The killer application, which is definitely becoming very prevalent, is DeFi, in my opinion. That's just because it's creating, like I said, I'm going to keep on repeating myself, like this internet of value. I think that is the true killer application. Like people used to look at Ethereum and it used to be even worse than some of these other like ICOs and stuff that came out in 2017. Like there was some serious Ponzi schemes that were going on like on Ethereum. Like people were just creating like the silliest things and people were falling for it. But we can talk a bit about this too if it interests you, like governance. People who hold these tokens actually own like if I buy 1% of the market cap of Aave tokens, for example, I own 1% of that whole company. I'm entitled to be a board member, basically. I can vote. I can propose votes. I can go vote on things that will directly change the application. And
yeah, but that's the same with any stock market, right? That's the principle of it. I don't know. I'm not gonna say that that happens, but
well,
that's
that's the
exactly the principle of it, right?
that's the okay. You can say that's the principle of it, but it definitely does not happen, and it's very unrealistic for you to acquire 1% of any top 500 company, right?
Yes, it's very unrealistic because you have to spend a buttload of money
Yeah,
to do that. But at some point, wouldn't it be the same for cryptos?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Just because the um, tokens are basically valued as soon as they come out based on the total supply. Like the total supply of the token, and it's always basically um, the market cap is basically predefined for most of these tokens. Like a lot of R&D goes into tokens that are coming out, which can project the price of it based on future demand and future supply. Like people are like really doing this full time, right? Um, and the way that tokens are distributed is sort of like you're actually the way that most of these complicated new applications work is that you're incentivized to actually stake these tokens in traditional finance. That would be like stake your stocks, for example, like lock your stocks up so that you can't just go onto the free market and sell them all to someone looking to buy them all, right? Um, they're airdropped to people so that they go to specific wallets that would potentially be interested and they know would not sell off these tokens. The team only accounts for maybe five, at this point, like 10 to 15% of the whole supply would be like accredited to the team. Then there's private investors. So the distribution of these tokens is set up in a way so that, like, again, like no, like, it just doesn't make sense for someone to go and dump on the whole market because even if they were to dump, it goes back to that problem of it being illiquid, where if you were to dump, like the token would crash and there wouldn't even be enough buyers to dump like 1% of the whole market cap.
Except if you are Tron. Anyways,
Yeah, Tron.
but I think that all is really fascinating, and I can't be more excited for things to come alive. Uh, right now, I would have to thank you for all the knowledge that you dropped on our heads, and I'm really looking forward for the next steps of this DeFi. I think it's revolution. It's not even a movement. I think we're gonna experience something different, and I hope the governing bodies of the stock market and every asset management company out there, and I'm not like not to dismiss Tesla, but I don't think that these are the right uh, let's say not intermediaries, the right
Corporations to
yes,
use it as an
yes,
example, basically.
yeah,
So
sorry.
okay, let me get like so what you're saying basically is again, I don't think Bitcoin is the right example for all these companies to go with anyways also, right? But you can look at the government of the Bahamas, surprisingly. Some of these smaller governments are actually tokenizing, like getting rid of their fiat currency and replacing it with a stable coin. I think that's the kind of adoption we have to go for. Some of these smaller economies, that's like the perfect playground for them to like, obviously like it's very risky at the moment for like for their people. But I think for other big countries and governments, like this is a perfect use case for you to like see like how much more efficient would your economy be if you were to shift solely to stable coins and not have one person in control of the money printer and sort of let the whole network and let the whole like the economic system be decided by people who just want to, set up a rig and just like mine it at home, right? So I think there's definitely the stuff that's being worked on in smaller economies and also with smaller corporations, you could say, that people are experimenting. And I don't think the solution to mass adoption is Tesla buying, well, how much did they buy? 1.5 billion?
Like 1.5.
That makes the news. But I can tell you from inside the industry, there's definitely like small movements going on that will definitely turn into a case study of like that will make waves in a couple of years.
Oh, definitely, and I hope at some point we get to the next step, which I think is decentralized democracy, but that's a different step.
Okay, yeah, that's
yeah, for another philosophical discussion.
yeah.
Sami, thanks a lot for your time, and thanks a
Yeah,
lot
no
for
problem.
backing up.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's nice talking with
Thank
you.
you. This is it. Your mind is now backed up. To learn more about the topics discussed or the guests, follow the links in the description. Now you have the chance to subscribe, rate, like, dislike, and review the show. Also, looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, and see you next time.